Hello and welcome to today's Wholehearted Living podcast episode with your host Debs Thorpe. And today we are going to be navigating how we actually deal with that horrible inner critic that can steal so much joy and pleasure from our lives. And we're going to explore some ways of being able to successfully navigate what it is to be at peace and acceptance with our inner critic. So let's dive in. So first off, just to say with today's recording that I'm currently sat outside overlooking the amazing Lake Como in northern Italy. So if you hear random noises in the background of some birds and possibly a car going past, my apologies. But it's about 7 a.m. on Monday morning and it's absolutely stunning out here. So I really wanted to be out and be able to bring this amazing energy through the waves to you. So the inner critic is something that crops up all the time with client work, and it's because typically it's become such a dominant part of our thinking. Okay, so I'm sure we've all had the experience where some days it just feels pretty relentless with that very strong critical voice inside of you that just won't stop. And you know it's not serving you, you know it's not making you feel good about yourself, but there's almost like there's no tools in the tool bag to be able to deal with it. So in today's episode, I want to give you some tools to be able to understand a bit more about the critic and the role of the critic and how we can actually navigate this. So first things first is, I really want to take some power away from the critic. And to do that, we just need to put it in the context that it is just one part of many parts of our functioning. Okay, so alongside the critic, we will have a nurturing voice, a compassionate voice. We will have the joyful child. We will have the playful aspect of us. We'll have all of these many different aspects of ourselves. So what we want to be able to do is put the critic back in its place as one of many parts within us. Okay, so we want to take away some of its power. And by doing that, it's recognizing when that critical voice is taking the reins, if you like. So becoming aware of that and going, okay, thank you, I see you, thank you for your contribution. I'm now going to ask someone else to take the stage. Now, one of the ways that I work with this is literally imagining that you are the director in a theatre and you have got all of these different characters, all these different parts that are waiting to come out on stage, and you get to command which one comes out at any one stage. So the quicker that you can catch the inner critic, the easier it is to switch it out. So whenever you begin to catch yourself going into some really self-critical, negative thoughts, the quicker you can catch it and then go, oh, okay, I see you, you're the one that's taking the centre stage at the moment. Okay, well, I'm now going to imagine that I am the director that's sat in the theatre, and I'm going to ask another part to come out onto stage, and they're going to take centre stage for a while. Now, the inner critic might not totally disappear off the stage. Maybe he goes to become part of the background chorus for a moment. But we actively want to recruit another part of us. Now, the logical part when we have got into that critical cycle is to allow a very nurturing, compassionate voice to come forward. Now, many psychologists will work with a nurturing, compassionate parent, which if you've had that and you've had that framework, it works really well. What I found is that there's not many clients that have had a really solid, compassionate, nurturing parental voice. So I expand this out. So I almost imagine this to be a bit of a fairy godmother character. Okay, so for some people, they can relate this more to like an auntie or a family friend, or, you know, it doesn't have to be grounded in a person, which is why I quite like to make it a character, because then we get to expand it beyond what we know. So, if we imagine then that we have a eternally praising fairy godmother that comes on and takes center stage, and I just want you to allow her to almost deliver a bit of a monologue about how amazing you are and all of your amazing positive qualities, and just allow her to monologue for a bit. Now, you might find that the inner critic wants to jump in every now and again, but remember that you're sat there in the director's role, and so that means that you get to tell the critic where you want them to go, right, and you get to tell them to stop, and that there's someone else taking center stage right now. So I teach this technique because we don't want to listen to the inner critic for too long. Now, to some extent, it can have a role in our life. Okay, so we wouldn't necessarily want to go through life with no sense of a critic at all, because the critic might be the one that does check us if we maybe have done something wrong or hurt somebody, or maybe the critic is the one that is pushing us to deliver something beyond what we thought was possible. So it's trying to push us beyond our current limits. So I'm not one to sit here, and I don't think that we should demonize any part of ourselves. I also think generally in life it gets too much airtime. And so what we want to do is recognize it when it comes up, but know that actually, unless you've specifically called upon it because you're doing a bit of self-awareness work, and in that moment you want to know, is there anything that you want to be working on, or anything that you want to improve, unless you're actively calling on the critic, I don't think it serves us too well in our general life. And so we want to be able to get used to being in control of which part of our brain is taking center stage at any one time. So that's what this tool and this technique teaches you to do. So I really want you to get playful with this, okay? I want you to just for today, try and become aware as quickly as possible of when you start getting those critical thoughts. Okay, so anything that makes you feel less than or not good, or all of that kind of stuff. Recognize it, and then imagine that critic is on center stage. You are the director, and you are going to summon another part of you. Now, for some people, this could be like, I don't know, the fun part of you, or the maybe the childlike part of you. Whichever part in that moment feels like they want to take center stage and take some of the power and the kind of attention away from the critic in that moment, absolutely allow them to come and take center stage, and just allow that to play out for a couple of minutes. Okay, so that's kind of like the first port of call to go to when it comes to dealing with the inner critic. The next thing is that we want to start laying a framework for a more nurturing, compassionate voice. Now, like I said, some people had this influence naturally in their life, and so whilst they might have days when they struggle a bit more with the inner critic, that, you know, more than others, they generally have a compassionate voice to call upon. If you feel like you struggle to even know what to tell yourself in order to be kind, compassionate, nurturing to yourself, then we need to start laying the track as to what that actually is, right? So there's a couple of ways. One is that you literally learn what you might say to a child. Okay, so if there was a 4 or 5 year old in front of you now who was just, you know, really wanted to spend some time with you, and, you know, what are the sorts of things that you would say to that child? What would you want them to know? You know, that they are so loved, that they are amazing just as they are. You can't believe how lovable they are. You just, like, you love spending time with them. And so I want you to think about the things that you would say to that child. And from another way, if that particular analogy doesn't work for you, another way to do this is to imagine a friend or a loved one. Okay, imagine that they've come to you and, you know, you're sat on a bench somewhere, or you're sat next to each other on the sofa, and they're struggling with their inner critic. You know, they're struggling with not feeling worthy enough or good enough, and that self-criticism and that self-judgment is feeling really, really strong in that moment. What is it that you would be saying to them? You know, you're not going to be joining in with them on the kind of the critical talk, right? You're going to be talking to them with that nurturing, compassionate voice. You're going to be reminding them of how loved they are, of how amazing they are, of how much you love spending time with them, of what they mean to you. So you can take these two examples and then use those words towards yourself. Now, it's okay if this doesn't always feel true for you in that moment. What we're doing is laying the framework for that kind, compassionate part of you to know what to say in that moment. So I've kind of given you 3 different sorts of analogies there to work with the inner critic. And like I've said, you know, in my experience, most people who I come into contact with and most clients, they have a really overly developed and very, very strong inner critic. And so we are always working to balance that out. And, you know, I'm kind of going to leave this as a short and sweet episode because this is very action focused. Okay, so this has been designed to give you some tools to actively work with this, to now implement this in your everyday life. Because in the next episode, I'm going to dig more into kind of root causes around self-esteem and self-worth and what we do on a bit more of a deeper level. But for now, I just want you to, just for today, that's all you need to tell your brain. Just for today, I am going to be the director, and I am going to choose which of the parts are going to be taking centre stage at any one time. And of course, you can do this with anything, right? So, you know, maybe you've finished work and you've got caught up with quite a stressful work day, and you get home and you don't want to be carrying all of that work stuff with you. You want to be present. You know, you might then actively summon the more fun part of you, or the parent part of you, or the partner part of you that in that moment can be more present, and you actively kind of put your work role, your work self to the back of the stage. So play around with this today. Let me know how you get on with it. And like I said, if you are not already subscribed on whichever podcast channel you're listening to this on. Please do subscribe, because the next episode we're going to dive a little bit more into the root of self-esteem and self-worth, and how we get to change that quickly and easily. Okay. Enjoy your day, enjoy being the director, and I look forward to connecting with you very soon. Bye for now.